Hey everyone, welcome back to all my listeners. Hope you're all having a great day so far. And if it's your first time finding me, thanks so much and welcome. Welcome to episode 4 of my 4th season. Today is Wednesday, September 22nd, 2021. My name is Sonal Patel, and this is the Paint the Medical Picture podcast series. Now, happy first day of autumn to all of you. You know, fall is my very favorite season, and here in the Midwest, the nights are already cool and ever so crisp. But I'm still waiting for those bright colors to blaze across the landscape. Now, I'm feeling seriously studious these days, right, with these latest podcasts, but I promise I have a great lineup of guests who cannot wait to share their thoughts with all of us. Now, all right, guys, let's get right into it again today. There's so much to unpack. Now, I guess I'm feeling a little extra nerdy right now, right? Our kids are back in school, the yellow school buses are on the roads, and for us, our coding books are being shipped out. So I'm looking forward to all that paper dust, those paper snowflakes that fall from our new CPT coding books. Now, in last week's podcast, it was all about ICD-10-CM guidelines, right? But in this week's episode, I want to unpack my newsworthy highlights for the new CPT coding for 2022. Now, although my book is not quite here on my front doorstep, remember, this code set is going to be effective on January 1st, 2022. And in my compliance tip today, I dive into my Back to Basics series with the NCCI Manual. And I round out today's episode with an incredible quote on illumination from the wise words of Albert Schweitzer. If you've checked me out on LinkedIn, you know I'm all about compliance and protecting our physicians and valued healthcare professionals when it comes to the business of medicine. I hope this week with me brings you enough to take back to your organizations, to want to dive in deeper, to use my tips and best practices to ensure success. I hope this podcast will help you boost the quality of documentation capture and improve coding accuracy as you help your providers paint the medical picture. If you like what you're hearing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button now so you don't miss another episode. Please write in a review and kindly drop me a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to my podcast. I'd really love your support. And as always, a friendly disclaimer. Remember, I'm bringing you the news, current healthcare industry news, my compliance tips and recommendations based on my over 10 years of experience in front office, back end, coding, and billing for multi-specialty physicians, compliance, and auditing for both E&M and surgical operative reports. These are my opinions alone and are not to be construed as legal advice. So, let's get into Newsworthy. I wanted to go over the AMA's release of the 2022 CPT code set. Big highlights are, of course, the COVID-19 vaccine and vaccine administration codes that are among the 405 editorial changes made to the 2022 CPT code set. These editorial changes include 249 new codes, 63 deletions, and 93 revisions. Now, the CPT code set continues to see growth in new and novel areas of medicine, with 43% of editorial changes tied to the new technology services described in our Category 3 CPT code section, and the continued expansion of the proprietary laboratory analyses, or PLA section, of the CPT code set. Now, remember, the American Medical Association, that's our AMA, states, quote, changes to the CPT code set are considered through an open editorial process managed by the CPT editorial panel, an independent body convened by the AMA that collects broad input from the healthcare community and beyond to ensure CPT content reflects the coding demands of digital health, precision medicine, augmented intelligence, and other aspects of a modern healthcare system. This rigorous editorial process keeps the CPT code set current with contemporary medical science and technology so it can fulfill its vital role as the trusted language of medicine today and the code to its future. End quote. Now, other important additions to the 2022 CPT code set respond to the fast pace of innovation in digital medicine services that can improve healthcare access and enhance outcomes for patients across the country. Now, this is illustrated by the creation of 5 new CPT codes in CPT codes 98975, 98976, 98977, 98980, 98981. Now, these new CPT codes report therapeutic remote monitoring, an increasingly important avenue of patient care, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, these new codes expand on the remote physiologic monitoring codes that we already have established. They've been created since 2020. And you can find these in CPT codes 99453, 99454, 99457, 99458. Now, as innovative digital medicine services have quickly expanded in recent years, the CPT code set has also responded with a unique educational guide. Now, there's also a brand new shiny new appendix that I left off of my podcast last week on CPT appendices. This is Appendix R that will be included in the 2022 CPT code set, and it will provide a taxonomy for digital medicine services that supports increased awareness and understanding of approaches to patient care through the multifaceted digital medicine services that are available for reporting in the CPT code set. Now, the CPT editorial panel also created new codes for principal care management in the new 2022 CPT codes of 99424, 99425, 99426, and 99427. These new principal care management codes will allow physicians and qualified healthcare professionals to report care management services for patients with one complex chronic condition. Now, Medicare policy for principal care management services has been evolving over the past few years with their HCPCS G codes of G2064 and G2065. And now there are these new CPT codes, along with revisions to existing CPT codes for care management that better align with Medicare guidelines. These CPT changes add to nearly a decade of coding content work that respond to the reporting needs of physicians and others who help manage the chronic conditions of America's aging population. Wow, simply incredible, right? I cannot wait to leaf through all the pages of the new 2022 CPT code set when it arrives. I cannot wait. Now, there are always CPT changes year after year, and it's critical for health information management professionals, certified coders, clinical documentation integrity specialists to be fully aware of all that is new, all that is added, all that is revised, whatever the changes may be. After all, it's all about our ability to inform our providers of the critical new code sets so that they are better prepared. Also, we need to be aware of the new code set to avoid the compliance risk of capturing outdated codes on claims. The new code sets always need to be disseminated down to the granular level for your provider's EMR systems as well. It's all about the quality and the integrity of the data that's being reported. Staying in the coding know is fundamental to the success of any medical practice. And now it's time for my best practice tips in Trusty Tip. So, in today's new Back to Basics compliance tip, I wanted to focus on the NCCI Manual. That's the National Correct Coding Initiative Policy Manual for Medicare Services, developed by CMS. This manual is so fabulous. And you know what? I started using it years ago as a new certified coder, and I continue to use it diligently to this day. Have you been using it to help you? Well, I think it's one of those good things for us to get back to. There are 13 chapters total, along with an introduction. So why don't we start with Chapter 1 for General Correct Coding Policies. Now, I'm all about looking at things with my eye on compliance, and there's so much language here that helps identify areas of compliance risky business that goes on in this current healthcare landscape. And it pretty much hits you right in the face, right from the start, right in the first subsection for this chapter on general coding policies. So let's start with a quote. Procedures shall be reported with the most comprehensive CPT code that describes the services performed. Physicians must not unbundle the services described by a HCPCS or CPT code. Now, they provide some examples that follow. Quote, a physician shall not unbundle services that are integral to a more comprehensive procedure. For example, surgical access is integral to a surgical procedure. A physician shall not report CPT code 49000 for exploratory laparotomy when performing an open abdominal procedure, such as a total abdominal colectomy. That's with your CPT code 44150, end quote. Now, it goes on even further. Quote, physicians must avoid downcoding. If a HCPCS or CPT code exists that describes the services performed, the physician must report this code rather than report a less comprehensive code with other codes describing the services not included in the less comprehensive code. For example, if a physician performs a unilateral partial mastectomy with axillary lymphadenectomy, the provider shall report CPT code 19302 for mastectomy partial with axillary lymphadenectomy. A physician shall not report CPT code 19301 for mastectomy partial plus CPT code 38745 for axillary lymphadenectomy complete. So I love it. They start right off the bat in giving these fabulous examples of what not to do. Now it goes even further where it talks about upcoding. Quote, physicians must avoid upcoding. A HCPCS or CPT code may be reported only if all services described by that code have been performed. For example, if a physician performs a superficial axillary lymphadenectomy with CPT code 38740, the physician shall not report CPT code 38745 for axillary lymphadenectomy complete. Okay, like I said, this hits home again and again and again. And so it's so very important to look at the clinical documentation from this lens. So I want to go on and highlight the next subsection in Chapter 1. It's titled Coding Based on Standards of Medical and Surgical Practice. Quote, most HCPCS and CPT code defined procedures include services that are integral to them. Some of these integral services have specific CPT codes for reporting the service when not performed as an integral part of another procedure. For example, CPT code 36000 for introduction of needle or intracatheter into a vein. Now, this is integral to all nuclear medicine procedures that require an injection of a radiopharmaceutical into a vein. CPT code 36000 is not separately reportable with these types of nuclear medicine procedures. However, CPT code 36000 may be reported alone if the only service provided is the introduction of a needle into a vein. Other integral services do not have specific CPT codes. For example, wound irrigation is integral to the treatment of all wounds and does not have a HCPCS or CPT code. Services integral to HCPCS or CPT code defined procedures are included in those procedures based upon the standards of medical and surgical practice. It is inappropriate to separately report services that are integral to another procedure with that procedure. Many NCCI procedure-to-procedure edits, or PTP edits, are based upon the standards of medical and surgical practice. Services that are integral to another service are component parts of the more comprehensive service. when integral component services have their own HCPCS and CPT codes, NCCI PTP edits place the comprehensive service in column 1 and the component service in column 2. Since a component service integral to a comprehensive service is not separately reportable, the column 2 code is not separately reportable with the column 1 code. Some services are integral to large numbers of procedures. Other services are integral to a more limited number of procedures. Examples of services integral to a large number of procedures include cleansing, shaving, and prepping of skin, draping and positioning of a patient, insertion of intravenous access for medication administration, insertion of urinary catheter, sedative administration by the physician performing a procedure, local, topical, or regional anesthesia administered by the physician performing the procedure, surgical approach, including identification of anatomical landmarks, incision, evaluation of the surgical field, debridement of traumatized tissue, lysis of adhesions, and isolation of structures limiting access to the surgical field, such as bone, blood vessels, nerve, and muscles, including stimulation for identification or monitoring. Surgical cultures, wound irrigation, insertion and removal of drains, suction devices, and pumps into the same site. Surgical closure and dressings, application, management, and removal of post-operative dressings and analgesic devices, peri-incisional ones, application of TENS units, institution of patient-controlled anesthesia, preoperative, intraoperative, and postoperative documentation, including photographs, drawings, dictation, or transcription as necessary to document the services provided, imaging and/or ultrasound guidance, surgical supplies, except for specific situations where CMS policy permits separate payment. Wow. So there's simply so much that a certified coding professional, a certified auditor, a compliance leader has to take into account when analyzing medical claims information against the medical documentation. I hope you too can find marvel in the NCCI Manual, and I just provided the bare bones here, just a snippet from Chapter 1. These back to basics will hopefully remind you that there's much more detailed information available at our fingertips. These details help us in being mindful of our coding capture, ensuring that we truly utilize all of the resources we have available to us to avoid situations of risky business. Our end game is to ensure that our provider's clinical documentation is capturing complete accuracy of the patient's medical condition so that we can provide accurate and complete coding abstraction. So, a better, smarter approach is one that's proactive and starts by painting a clear, rich, and vibrant medical picture the first time, so your certified medical coder can then abstract codes with accuracy. And finally, in this week's inspiring quote in Spark is from physician, theologian, writer, humanitarian, and Pulitzer Prize winner Albert Schweitzer. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us. Incredible vision, right? I think this is an amazing quote that reminds us we are surrounded by inspiration, by illumination. We will find ourselves down and out at some point in our lives. We will no doubt face sorrow and hardship, and our light may extinguish. But remember, when we are ready to get back up, get back out there, our eyes will be able to see all the light again, all the light that surrounds us and inspires us. There is certainly someone who sees us and lights the spark in us once again. I am happy Albert Schweitzer's spark still shines on in all of us today. So that wraps up today's episode. Please go out and make this a great day, an incredible week for yourselves. Aim a little higher, do a little more, and give back in any way you can in 2021. There's so much each one of us can do. Now, I know conferences and meetings have geared back up this fall, and I'm so excited. But as you may be heading out there yourselves, please remember to continue masking up, washing up, and staying physically distant. As always, I appreciate you diving into today with me. And if you want more information from me, go ahead and follow me on LinkedIn. I'll leave links to everything in the show notes below. Please continue staying safe and healthy, practice safety for one and all during our collective, seemingly never ever ending life and times of coronavirus. Thank you so much for listening in on today's episode, and I hope every week with me brings you closer to helping your providers paint a masterpiece. See you next Wednesday. You know, man.